You are not weak. You are reactive. And every time someone pulls an emotion out of you, they are stealing your power. That's the truth. The world is not controlled by the loud. It is controlled by the unprovocable. The person who cannot be rushed, cannot be baited, cannot be emotionally hijacked. This book will teach you how to become that person. You have a choice: react and stay small, or stay silent and become untouchable. That's the key. You are not upset because of what happened. You are upset because you gave it access to your nervous system. That's the key. Something was said, a look was given, a message was sent, and suddenly your heart rate changed, your breathing changed, your focus disappeared. That means someone else took control of your internal world. And that should terrify you. Because the person who controls your nervous system controls your decisions. They control your words. They control your confidence. They control your future. You have a choice, always. Be the owner of your inner state or be a puppet to the outside world. Most people are puppets. They don't think they are, but they are. They wake up calm. Then one email ruins them. One comment ruins them. One disrespect ruins them, and now their entire day is hijacked. That's not life. That's emotional slavery. You don't need their permission to stay calm. You don't need their approval to stay steady. You don't need their validation to breathe slow and think clearly. That's the key. Let me show you what this looks like in the real world. Someone says something careless. Maybe they didn't even mean it, but it hits you. And now you replay it all day. You imagine arguments. You imagine comebacks. You imagine proving them wrong. Meanwhile, your work suffers. Your mood collapses. Your energy drains. All because of a sentence. That means a stranger now owns 8 hours of your life. Think about that. You gave away your nervous system for free. It's not about what they said. It's about the discipline you didn't use. It's not about their words. It's about your reaction. That's the key. The nervous system is the control center of your life. If someone can speed it up, slow it down, or throw it into chaos, they own you. And most people walk around with exposed wires. Anyone can touch them. Anyone can spark them. Anyone can set them off. You have a choice. You can live that way, reactive, fragile, emotionally loud. Or you can train yourself to become unmovable. Here's the truth nobody wants to hear. Your triggers are not accidents, they are patterns. You always get angry about the same things. You always get hurt by the same tone. You always get insecure about the same topics. That means your nervous system is predictable, and anything predictable can be controlled. That's the key. So how do you take your power back? You start with one discipline, the pause. Before you respond, before you react, before you speak, you pause. You feel the emotion. You don't obey it. You breathe, slow, deep, intentional. This is not weakness. This is dominance. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about controlling it. It's not about pretending you don't feel. It's about deciding what you do with what you feel. You have a choice. Emotion shows up. You choose behavior. That's the key. Most people do it backward. They feel something and immediately act. Anger comes, they explode. Fear comes, they hide. Insecurity comes, they explain. Ego comes, they argue. That is not power. That is reflex. And reflexes are easy to manipulate. A disciplined person is dangerous because they don't move on cue. They move on decision. You don't need their permission to not react. You don't need their permission to stay silent. You don't need their permission to keep your nervous system steady. That's the key. Let's get practical. The next time something hits you emotionally, do this. Step 1, name it. Say it in your head. This is anger. This is fear. This is ego. When you name it, you separate from it. Step 2, delay. No response for 60 seconds.
No typing, no talking, no posting. You let the nervous system settle. Step 3. Decide. Ask yourself one question. What response gives me power? Not relief, not revenge, power. Sometimes the answer is silence. Sometimes it's a calm statement. Sometimes it's walking away. But now you're choosing, not reacting. That's the key. This one habit alone will change your entire life. Because when people can't control your nervous system, they can't control you. They try to provoke, you don't move. They try to shame, you don't explain. They try to rush, you don't hurry. And something strange happens. They lose power, you gain it. Calm is not passive. Calm is command. It tells the world, I am not moved by noise. And noise is what weak people use. Strong people don't need to provoke. They don't need to poke. They don't need to test. They act. You are becoming one of them. It's not about being emotionless. It's about being uncontrollable. That's the key. Every time you don't react, you build a new nervous system, one that is slower, one that is steadier, one that is harder to hijack. And that is the foundation of being unprovocable. You have a choice. Give people your nervous system or keep it. Control yourself or be controlled. You just learned how to keep your inner world. Now, let's go deeper. Because once you stop letting people touch your nervous system, you realize something dangerous.
When you react, you admit they touched you. That's the key. You didn't just get angry. You didn't just get defensive. You didn't just fire back. You confessed. You confessed that their words reached inside you. You confessed that their tone mattered. You confessed that they had access to your nervous system. Powerful people don't confess. They don't reveal what moves them. They don't reveal what stings. They don't reveal what makes them feel small. Weakness is not being emotional. Weakness is being readable. And every reaction makes you readable. That's the key. Look at arguments. One person raises their voice. The other stays calm. Who looks in control? One person insults. The other stays quiet. Who looks strong? The one who doesn't react controls the frame. The one who reacts becomes the performance. You have a choice. Be the one performing or be the one watching. That's the key. Now look at social media. Someone posts something disrespectful, something ignorant, something meant to poke you. And what do people do? They rush to respond. They type paragraphs. They defend themselves. They argue with strangers. They think they're winning, but what they're actually doing is advertising vulnerability. They are telling the world, this gets under my skin. And anything that gets under your skin can be used against you. That's the key. Silence is not losing. Silence is refusing to give your enemy data. You don't need their permission to be calm. You don't need their permission to not reply. You don't need their permission to keep your power. When you don't react, the other person feels something dangerous. Uncertainty. They don't know if they got to you. They don't know if they mattered. They don't know if they won. And that eats at them. Because people who provoke want one thing, a reaction. No reaction means no reward. That's the key. Now let's talk about relationships. Someone says something unfair, something hurtful, something designed to test you. Most people snap back. They explain, they defend, they plead to be understood. And in doing that, they drop their status, because the person who needs to explain is the one seeking approval. It's not about being right. It's about being steady. You don't need their permission to be composed. You don't need their permission to let things go. You don't need their permission to choose silence. That's the key. Here's the brutal truth. If someone can make you react, they can make you act. They can pull your words. They can pull your decisions. They can pull your energy. And people who can pull you can use you. That's why emotional discipline is everything. It's not about being cold. It's about being unmovable. It's not about being numb. It's about being in control. That's the key. So what do you do when someone tries to provoke you? You do 3 things. First, you recognize the test. Provocation is always a test. They want to see if you'll break. They want to see if you'll react. They want to see if they matter. Second, you deny them the reward. No immediate response. No emotional spike. No visible irritation. Third, you decide from power, not from feeling, from position. You ask one question: what response makes me look strongest? Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's a single calm sentence. Sometimes it's walking away. But it is never emotional. That's the key. Let me say it clearly. Your reaction is their victory. Your calm is your dominance. You have a choice: feed their need for attention or starve it. And when you starve it, something powerful happens. They stop trying. Because people don't poke walls, they poke buttons. And when you remove your buttons, you become untouchable. That's the key. The strongest people in any room are not the loudest. They are the least reactive. They don't rush. They don't flinch. They don't scramble to defend themselves. They know who they are, and they don't need permission to act like it. You don't need their permission to be calm. You don't need their permission to not explain. You don't need their permission to protect your inner world. That's the key. Every time you don't react, you rewrite how people treat you. They learn you are not easy to move. They learn you are not easy to provoke. They learn you are not easy to control. And that is respect. Not fear, not loudness, not aggression. Stillness. Controlled stillness. That is real power. You have a choice: be pulled by others or stand in yourself. You just learned how to stop giving your power away through reaction. Now it's time to understand the deeper mechanism behind why people can move you in the first place. Because emotion is the handle they use.
People don't control you with force. They control you with feeling. They pull your anger. They pull your fear. They pull your ego. And when those move, you move. That's the key. You think you're acting freely. You think you're choosing. But most of the time, you're being pulled. Pulled by disrespect. Pulled by insecurity. Pulled by the need to be seen, heard, and validated. And whoever can pull those strings can make you do almost anything. That's the key. Look at your boss. They raise their voice. Your heart rate changes. Your breathing tightens. Your confidence shrinks. And now you comply. Not because they're right, but because your nervous system just went into threat. That's not leadership. That's emotional leverage. Look at relationships. A partner withdraws affection. They go cold. They go distant. Suddenly you start chasing, explaining, trying to fix it. Not because you're wrong, but because fear got triggered. That's the key. Look at critics. They mock you. They question you. They poke at your identity. And suddenly you want to prove yourself. You type, you argue, you defend. Not because it matters, but because ego got touched. That's the key. People don't need power over your body. They need power over your emotion. Because emotion is the handle. And once they grab it, they can move you wherever they want. You have a choice. Be someone with handles or be someone smooth. Smooth people are dangerous. There's nothing to grab. No ego to poke. No fear to pull. No anger to yank. That's the key. It's not about how you feel. It's about what you do. Let me say it again. It's not about how you feel. It's about what you do. You will always feel something. Anger, fear, irritation, desire. The question is not, do I feel? The question is, do I obey? That's the key. Most people obey emotion. Anger says speak, they speak. Fear says hide, they hide. Ego says prove, they prove. And now they are predictable. And predictable people are easy to manipulate. You don't need their permission to not react. You don't need their permission to pause. You don't need their permission to choose discipline over impulse. That's the key. Here's how this works in the real world. Your boss criticizes you publicly. You feel heat rise in your chest. That's anger. That anger wants to speak, to snap, to defend. But if you do, you lose status. So you breathe. You stay calm. You respond later. You just took the handle away. Your partner goes cold. You feel panic. That's fear. Fear wants to chase, to beg, to explain. But if you do, you lose leverage. So you stay steady. You stay composed. You let them feel the silence. You just took the handle away. Someone insults you online. You feel ego spike. That's identity. Ego wants to reply, to prove, to win. But if you do, you feed them. So you don't respond. You just took the handle away. That's the key. You cannot stop emotion from appearing, but you can stop it from driving. Emotion is information, not instruction. Feel it, don't follow it. That is discipline. It's not about suppression, it's about command. You are not killing emotion, you are putting it in the back seat, and you are taking the wheel. That's the key. Here is the daily practice that makes you unmovable. Every time emotion hits, ask one question. What is this trying to make me do? Anger wants to attack. Fear wants to avoid. Ego wants to prove. Now you see the handle. And once you see it, you can let go. You choose the response, not the reflex. You have a choice every single time. You don't need their permission to be disciplined. You don't need their permission to not be pulled. You don't need their permission to keep your power. That's the key. Let me give you a hard truth. If you are easy to anger, people will use it. If you are easy to shame, people will use it. If you are easy to scare, people will use it. That doesn't make them evil. That makes them human, and it makes you responsible. You don't win by blaming the world. You win by mastering yourself. That's the key. Every day you train this, you become harder to move. You stop jumping when poked. You stop chasing when ignored. You stop proving when doubted. And something powerful happens. People start treating you differently because they can't find the handle. No handle, no leverage. No leverage, no control. That is unprovokable. You have a choice. Be driven by emotion or be guided by discipline. It's not about how you feel, it's about what you do. That's the key. You just learned how people move you. Now it's time to learn why staying calm is the ultimate advantage.
The one who stays calm sees clearly while others collapse. That's the key. When emotions rise, vision falls. When panic enters, intelligence leaves. When anger spikes, judgment disappears. That is why calm is not just a feeling. Calm is a weapon. You have a choice. Breathe or break. That's the key. Look at any negotiation. One side is emotional. They want the deal. They need the approval.
They are nervous about losing. The other side is calm. They are not rushed. They are not desperate. They are not attached. Who wins? Always the calm one. Because the calm one can think. They can wait. They can walk away. The emotional one can't. They reveal their position. They show their fear. They expose their weakness. And that gives away power. That's the key. Now look at conflict. Two people arguing. One is loud. One is breathing slowly. One is reactive. One is observant. The loud one is bleeding information. The calm one is collecting it. They see what hurts. They see what matters. They see where the leverage is. Because calm creates clarity. You have a choice. Breathe or break. That's the key. Most people think calm means passive. It doesn't. Calm means you are in control of your nervous system. And when you control that, you control everything else. Your voice stays steady. Your posture stays strong. Your thinking stays sharp. Meanwhile, the other person is unraveling. They are trying to get a reaction. They are trying to move you. They are trying to make you emotional. And when you don't give it to them, something powerful happens. They start losing control. That's the key. Power is not who speaks the most. Power is who moves the least. Because the one who moves less forces the other to move more. And the one who moves more makes mistakes. You don't need their permission to stay calm. You don't need their permission to breathe slowly. You don't need their permission to think before you speak. That's the key. Let's make this practical. The next time you're in a heated situation, do this. First, lower your breathing. Slow, deep, intentional. This sends a signal to your brain. I am safe. When you feel safe, you think better. Second, slow your speech. Short sentences, no rush. People who rush sound weak. People who move slowly sound powerful. Third, say less. The more emotional the room becomes, the fewer words you should use. Calm is minimal. Chaos is noisy. That's the key. This applies everywhere. In business, in relationships, in public. When someone is upset, your calm becomes dominant. You are no longer reacting, you are leading. And people follow whoever seems most stable. Not the loudest, not the angriest, the steadiest. You have a choice. Breathe or break. That's the key. Here's a truth that changes how you see everything. When someone is emotional, they are temporarily weaker. They want relief. They want validation. They want control back. And if you stay calm, you become the source of stability. That gives you influence, not by force, by presence. That's the key. You are not trying to dominate people. You are trying to dominate yourself. Because the person who controls themselves controls the room. They don't need to shout. They don't need to threaten. They don't need to explain. Their calm does the work. You don't need their permission to be composed. You don't need their permission to pause. You don't need their permission to think before you speak. That's the key. Let me be blunt. If you cannot stay calm when challenged, you will always be at the mercy of those who can. They will outthink you. They will outmaneuver you. They will outlast you. Not because they're smarter, but because they are steadier. It's not about talent. It's about discipline. That's the key. Calm is trained. You train it by breathing when you want to explode. You train it by staying quiet when you want to argue. You train it by waiting when you want to rush. Every time you do this, you upgrade your nervous system. And a strong nervous system is the foundation of being unprovokable. You have a choice. Breathe or break. That's the key. You are learning to become the calm center in chaos. And once you have that, something else becomes clear. When you stay calm, you realize how often people try to pull you into their frame. And that's why the next lesson is critical. Because you lose power the moment you start defending yourself.
Defending yourself means you accepted their frame. That's the key. The moment you explain, the moment you justify, the moment you try to correct their version of you, you have already lost something. Not the argument, the position. Because whoever sets the frame controls the conversation. And when you defend yourself, you step inside their story. That's the T. Think about how this works online. Someone posts something about you. They misrepresent you. They twist your words. They question your character. And what do most people do? They rush in. They write long paragraphs. They explain. They defend. They think they're protecting themselves. But what they're actually doing is confirming that the accusation mattered. And once it matters, it grows. That's the key. Silence is strength. When you do not defend, you do not validate the attack. You deny it oxygen. You deny it legitimacy. You deny it relevance. And without relevance, attacks die. You don't need their permission to not explain. You don't need their permission to stay quiet. You don't need their permission to keep your frame. That's the key. Let's go deeper. When someone attacks you, they are trying to do one thing: define you. They want to decide who you are, what you mean, what you represent. And if you jump in to defend, you accept their authority to define you. That is weakness. Strong people don't let others define them. They let their actions speak. That's the key. Look at powerful people. They are misquoted, misunderstood, attacked, and they don't chase every lie, because chasing lies makes them look small. They know something. If you are doing real work, noise will appear, and real power doesn't respond to noise. It moves forward. Silence is strength. That's the key. Here's a hard truth. The more you defend, the more people attack, because they learn it works. They learn you'll show up. They learn you'll react. They learn you'll bleed energy, and predators go where there is blood. You have a choice: defend and feed them, or stay silent and starve them. That's the key. This applies everywhere. At work, someone questions your competence. You can explain, or you can deliver results. Results always win. In relationships, someone accuses. You can argue, or you can stay calm and let their insecurity reveal itself. Calm always wins. On social media, someone attacks. You can reply, or you can ignore and keep building. Builders always win. Silence is strength. That's the key. Defending yourself is emotional. It comes from fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being judged. Fear of being seen the wrong way. But it's not about fear. It's about discipline. You don't need their permission to be misunderstood. You don't need their permission to not explain. You don't need their permission to keep moving. That's the key. Here's what you do instead of defending. You ask one question. Does this require action, or is it just noise? If it's noise, you ignore it. If it's action, you handle it quietly. No performance, no drama, no public defense. Power moves in silence. Silence is strength. That's the key. When you stop defending, something shifts. People start guessing. They start wondering. They start projecting. And projection always reveals the attacker, not the target. You don't have to say anything. Your composure says everything. You have a choice: talk or stand. And standing still in your truth is far stronger than arguing for it. That's the key. Every time you don't defend, you keep your frame. Your frame is simple. I am who I am. I don't need to explain it. That is unprovokable, and that is power. Now you understand how silence protects your position. Next, you need to understand something even more dangerous. If people can trigger you, they can predict you, and that is how they control you. If they can trigger you, they can control you. That's the key. Predictability is not comfort.
Predictability is exposure. When people know what makes you angry, what makes you defensive, what makes you insecure, they know how to move you. That is power in their hands. You have a choice: be predictable or be unmovable. That's the key. Manipulators don't start with control. They start with testing. They say something small. They do something slightly disrespectful. They push just a little. And then they watch. Do you react? Do you get emotional? Do you explain? Now they have data. Now they know where the handle is. That's the key. In the workplace, a toxic manager will throw subtle jabs, public criticism, passive-aggressive comments. They are not being careless. They are fishing. They want to see if you'll shrink, if you'll argue, if you'll over-explain. Once they know, they escalate. In relationships, insecure people test boundaries. They pull away. They flirt with others. They create drama. They want to see if you chase. If you do, they know you're hooked. On social media, trolls provoke. They insult, they mock, they exaggerate. They want to see if you'll respond. If you do, they own your attention. That's the key. Triggers are entry points, and every time you react, you leave the door open. You don't need their permission to ignore them. You don't need their permission to stay quiet. You don't need their permission to not engage. That's the key. The strongest move is to be boring. Boring to provoke, boring to manipulate, boring to control. Because there's nothing to grab. No drama, no ego, no fear, just presence. That's the key. Here's how you become unprovocable. You stop reacting the same way every time. Sometimes you say nothing. Sometimes you change the subject. Sometimes you walk away. Sometimes you smile. You never give them a pattern. Patterns are leverage. You have a choice: be a pattern or be a mystery. That's the key. This doesn't mean you accept disrespect. It means you don't advertise where it hurts. You handle things quietly, privately, strategically. You don't perform your pain. Silence is how you stay unprovocable. You don't need their permission to ignore them. That's the key. Every trigger you master removes another handle from your life, and soon no one can pull you. Now it's time to go deeper, because being unprovocable is not personality, it's training.
You are not born unprovocable. You are trained. Emotional control is built through discipline, not luck. That's the key. Some people think calm is a personality trait. They think some people are just naturally steady, naturally thick-skinned, naturally composed. That's a lie. What you are seeing is not personality. You are seeing practice. You are seeing thousands of moments where someone chose not to react, not to explode, not to defend, not to chase. That's the key. Every time you pause instead of react, you build the muscle. Every time you breathe instead of snap, you build the muscle. Every time you delay instead of reply, you build the muscle. You have a choice, and every choice trains your nervous system. That's the key. Think of it like the gym. You don't walk in strong. You become strong by lifting when it hurts. Emotional discipline works the same way. You don't start unprovocable. You become unprovocable by choosing control when you feel pressure. That's the key. Here is how people get stuck. They wait until they feel calm before they act calm. That never works. Calm is not a feeling first. Calm is a decision first. You decide to slow down. You decide to breathe. You decide to wait. Then the feeling follows. That's the key. Let me give you the daily training system. This is how you become unprovocable in real life. Step 1. Pause. Anytime you feel a spike, anger, fear, ego, you pause. 3 seconds. No words, no typing, no movement. This interrupts the automatic reaction. Step 2. Breathe. Slow inhale, slow exhale. This tells your nervous system you are safe. A safe nervous system thinks clearly. Step 3.
Delay. You do not respond immediately. Text, email, conversation. You wait. Even 30 seconds changes everything. Step 4. Decide. You ask one question. What response gives me power? Not relief, not revenge, power. That's the key. You have a choice. Every trigger is a training rep, and most people waste them. They react, they explode, they regret. You do something different. You train. You don't need their permission to slow down. You don't need their permission to not reply instantly. You don't need their permission to choose discipline. That's the key. This works everywhere. At work, when someone criticizes you, you pause, you breathe, you decide. In relationships, when someone pulls away, you pause, you breathe, you decide. Online, when someone provokes, you pause, you breathe, you decide. And every time you do this, your nervous system changes. You become harder to shake, harder to rush, harder to move. That is unprovocable. That's the key. Let me be clear. You will still feel things. You will still feel anger. You will still feel fear. You will still feel irritation. Being unprovocable does not mean being numb. It means being in charge. It's not about flaw. It's about discipline. You don't remove emotion. You remove emotion's authority. That's the key. Most people live on autopilot. Emotion appears, they obey. You are building something different. Emotion appears, you choose. You have a choice, and choice is power. That's the key. Here's another daily habit. Start intentionally delaying small things. Wait before answering texts. Wait before replying to emails. Wait before responding in conversations. Not to play games, to train patience. Patience is emotional strength. People who can't wait cannot be rushed, and people who cannot be rushed cannot be controlled. That's the key. Also, train silence. You don't need to fill every gap. You don't need to respond to every comment. You don't need to explain every misunderstanding. Silence is a skill, and skills get stronger with use. You don't need their permission to be quiet. That's the key. Every day you train this, you become calmer under pressure. And calm under pressure is what separates leaders from followers. Followers react, leaders respond. That's the key. You are not trying to win arguments. You are trying to win control. Control of your attention, control of your emotions, control of your actions. And that starts with training. You have a choice. Train or stay reactive. That's the key. You are building the identity of someone who cannot be moved by noise. And once you have that, something else becomes obvious. The more you talk, the more power you give away. That's where we go next.
Over-explaining is emotional begging. That's the key. Every extra sentence you add to defend yourself is a quiet plea for approval. Every paragraph you type to be understood is a confession that you care too much what they think. Every justification you offer hands away a piece of your power. Strong people don't plead. That's the key. Look at what happens in real life. In a relationship, someone questions you, your loyalty, your intentions, your character. And what do most people do? They panic. They talk more. They explain. They try to prove they are not what was implied. But here's what they don't realize. The moment you start explaining, you accept the accusation as worthy of defense. You step into their frame. And now you are arguing inside their story. That's the key. In the workplace, someone doubts your decision. They challenge you in front of others. They hint that you made a mistake. So you rush to justify. You bring data, you bring excuses, you bring emotional energy. And suddenly you look uncertain. Not because you were wrong, but because you were trying to be believed. Strong people don't plead. They state. That's the key. Here's the truth. People don't trust explanations. They trust presence.
They trust calm. They trust certainty. They trust consistency. When you over-explain, you sound unsure. When you are concise, you sound solid. It's not about flaw, it's about discipline. The flaw is insecurity. The discipline is restraint. That's the key. You don't need their permission to be brief. You don't need their permission to say less. You don't need their permission to let silence sit. Silence is not awkward. Silence is pressure. And pressure reveals who is actually weak. That's the key. Let's look at a real example. Someone says, "I don't think you really meant that." Most people respond like this. "No, I did, because what I meant was, and if you look at it this way, and also, you have to understand." And now you are scrambling. You sound like someone who is unsure of their own position. The powerful response is simple. I said what I said. Stop. No justification, no apology, no pleading. Strong people don't plead. That's the key. Another example. Someone at work questions your competence. Most people go into story mode. "I've been here for years and I've done this and that and you don't understand." Weak. The strong response is calm. "I'm comfortable with my performance." Stop. Let them deal with the silence. That's the key. Over-explaining gives people room to argue with you. Short statements close the door. You don't owe anyone your inner process. You don't need their permission to not explain. That's the key. Here's the discipline you must build. When you feel the urge to explain, pause. Ask yourself one question. Am I clarifying facts or am I begging to be understood? If it's begging, you stop. Strong people don't plead. That's the key. This is not about being rude. It's about being centered. You're not trying to convince people. You are trying to remain grounded, because grounded people are hard to move. You have a choice. Speak from insecurity or speak from certainty. That's the key. Over-explaining is emotional leakage. It tells people where you're weak, and anything that leaks can be exploited. You don't need their permission to keep your power sealed. That's the key. Now, something important happens when you stop explaining. People either accept your position or they reveal their agenda. And when they reveal it, you see clearly. That's power. Strong people don't plead. They stand. And when you stand long enough, the noise fades. Now you are ready for something even harder. Because once you stop explaining, people will misunderstand you. And that is not a threat. It is a test.
Misunderstanding is not danger. That's the key. Most people panic the moment they feel misunderstood. They rush to clarify. They rush to correct. They rush to protect their image. And in doing that, they give away power. Because the person who needs to be understood is the person seeking approval. Strong people don't seek approval. They hold their ground. That's the key. Let's get this straight. You will be misunderstood, no matter what you do, no matter how clearly you speak, no matter how good your intentions are. So if misunderstanding is inevitable, why fight it? You don't need their permission to be misunderstood. You don't need their permission to stay quiet. You don't need their permission to keep moving. That's the key. Look at powerful people. They are misquoted. They are misread. They are misinterpreted. And they don't chase every wrong idea. Because they know something. If you stop to correct everyone, you stop making progress. And progress is what defines you, not opinions. That's the key. When someone misunderstands you, two things happen. Either they will adjust when they see your actions, or they will reveal their agenda. Both outcomes serve you. If they adjust, good. If they attack, now you know who they are. Silence exposes people. That's the key. Here's a real-world example. You make a decision at work. Someone assumes the wrong motive. Most people rush to explain. "I didn't mean it that way. Let me tell you what I was thinking." Weak. The strong response is simple. You keep working. You let results speak. Results always clarify. That's the key. In relationships, someone misunderstands your boundary. They think you don't care. They think you're distant. Most people panic. They overtext. They overexplain. Strong people stay steady. They let consistency show the truth. You don't need their permission to let time do the work. That's the key. Misunderstanding only hurts when you need validation. But when you know who you are, misunderstanding is harmless. It's not about flaw, it's about discipline. The flaw is insecurity. The discipline is self-trust. That's the key. Here's what you must train. When someone misunderstands you, do nothing. No correction, no emotional reaction, no defense. Just stay consistent. People who matter will figure it out. People who don't were never important. You have a choice. Chase clarity or keep your power. That's the key. Let me say it again. You don't need their permission. Not to be misunderstood, not to be silent, not to be yourself. That's the key. When you stop explaining and stop correcting, something happens. Your presence becomes louder than your words. And presence always wins. Now you are ready for the next level. Because silence is not passive. Silence is a psychological weapon.
Silence forces others to reveal themselves. That's the key. Noise hides people. Silence exposes them. When someone is talking, arguing, defending, and explaining, you don't know who they are. They are performing. They are posturing. They are protecting their ego. But when you stop feeding the conversation, something powerful happens. They start talking to themselves. That's the key. You win by not playing. Most arguments don't exist because of disagreement. They exist because of energy. One person throws emotion, the other throws it back, and now it's a fire. Silence removes the oxygen. No oxygen, no fire. That's the key. Think about every argument you've ever been in. It only kept going because both sides kept talking. One sentence from you, one sentence from them, back and forth. The moment one person stops, the game collapses. You win by not playing. That's the key. Silence creates psychological pressure. When you don't respond, the other person starts to feel something. Uncertainty, insecurity, loss of control. They don't know if you agree. They don't know if you're hurt. They don't know if you're done. And that bothers them. Because people who provoke want feedback. Silence gives them none. That's the key. You don't need their permission to be quiet. You don't need their permission to pause. You don't need their permission to not engage. That's the key. In negotiations, silence is deadly. You make an offer, then you go quiet. The other person fills the gap. They reveal urgency. They reveal fear. They reveal how much they want it. Silence makes people talk. That's the key. In relationships, silence creates clarity. Someone accuses. You don't jump to defend. They keep talking. They reveal their insecurity. They reveal their agenda. Silence makes people show themselves. That's the key. On social media, silence kills trolls. They want attention. They want reaction. They want to know they mattered. You give them nothing. They move on. You win by not playing. That's the key. Silence is not passive. Silence is active control. It says, I am not available for this, and that is powerful. It's not about flaw. It's about discipline. The flaw is reacting. The discipline is restraint. That's the key. Here's how you use silence in real life. Step 1. When something triggers you, do nothing. No typing, no talking, no explaining. Step 2. Watch.
Watch what the other person does without your energy. Do they escalate? Do they get nervous? Do they reveal something? Step 3, decide from clarity. Now you see who you're dealing with. That's the key. Silence gives you information. Noise hides it. You have a choice. Speak and stay blind, or stay quiet and see. That's the key. Every time you stay silent, you protect your nervous system. You keep your energy. You keep your focus. You keep your power. You don't need their permission to not respond. That's the key. You are becoming unprovokable. And once you master silence, you'll notice something. The world will test you more, because strength attracts challenges. That's what we go into next.
Triggers increase when you grow. That's the key. The moment you start becoming calmer, steadier, and more disciplined, something strange happens. The world pushes back. People poke. Situations tighten. Old triggers show up. Not because you are failing, because you are leveling up. That's the key. Weak people are ignored. Strong people are tested. When you were reactive, emotional, and easy to move, no one cared. But when you start holding your ground, people notice. They feel the shift, and they want to know if it's real. So they test you. You have a choice. Stay steady. That's the key. Look at success. When you start doing better than before, you attract something. Attention, jealousy, doubt. People start questioning you, criticizing you, pushing your buttons. Not because you did something wrong, but because your growth makes them uncomfortable. That's the key. When someone feels small next to your progress, they try to make you feel small too. They provoke, they mock, they undermine. They are not attacking you, they're defending their own ego. And if you react, they win. You have a choice. Stay steady. That's the key. This happens everywhere. At work, you get more competent, more confident. Suddenly, your boss gets harder. Your coworkers get colder. They want to see if you'll break. In relationships, you stop chasing, you set boundaries. Suddenly, there's drama. They want to see if you'll fold. Online, you start speaking with authority. People start attacking. They want to see if you'll react. It's all the same pattern. Testing. That's the key. Here's what you must understand. The tests are not obstacles, they are proof. Proof that you were changing. Proof that you were becoming unprovocable. If nothing pushes against you, you're not moving forward. You don't need their permission to keep growing. You don't need their permission to be strong. You don't need their permission to stay calm. That's the key. When a trigger appears, you smile inside, because now you know, this is a test. And when you see it as a test, it loses its power. You slow down, you breathe, you choose discipline. You have a choice. Stay steady. That's the key. Let me give you a new rule. Every time someone tries to provoke you, you don't take it personally. You take it as confirmation. Confirmation that your strength is visible, and strength always draws pressure. Diamonds are made under pressure. So are leaders. That's the key. Most people break when pressure comes. You do something different. You stand still. You don't rush to explain. You don't rush to defend. You don't rush to react. You let the storm pass. And storms always pass. That's the key. You were not here to be liked. You were here to be unmovable. People may not understand you. They may not agree with you. They may try to shake you, but they cannot move you. You don't need their permission to keep your ground. That's the key. Every test you pass builds your reputation. People learn you are not easy to shake, not easy to manipulate, not easy to pressure. And that creates respect. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind.
the kind that keeps people in line. That's the key. You have a choice. Stay steady. That is how you become truly unprovocable. Now there's one more truth you must understand. Being unbothered is not just emotional strength, it is status. And that is where we go next.
People respect what they can't shake. That's the key. Status is not loud. Status is not flashy. Status is stable. The person who stays calm while everyone else reacts becomes the center of gravity, and gravity controls everything around it. Calm is power. That's the key. Look at leaders. Real leaders don't rush. They don't panic. They don't explain themselves to everyone. They move slowly. They speak carefully. They react last. And because of that, people wait for them. Waiting is respect. That's the key. High-status individuals are not emotional. They are composed. They don't argue with everyone. They don't defend every rumor. They don't chase validation. They let the world adjust to them. Calm is power. That's the key. Look at a room when tension rises. Someone raises their voice. Someone gets aggressive. Someone gets defensive. And then there's one person who stays still. That person becomes the authority, not because they are louder, because they are unmoved. You have a choice. Be the noise or be the center. That's the key. When you are unbothered, people project strength onto you. They assume you know something. They assume you have leverage. They assume you are in control, because only someone in control can remain calm. You don't need their permission to be unbothered. You don't need their permission to be steady. You don't need their permission to not react. That's the key. Here's the real reason calm equals status. People are scared of chaos. They are drawn to stability. And when you provide stability, they gravitate toward you. That's influence, not force, not volume, presence. Calm is power. That's the key. You can practice this. Walk slower, speak less, pause before answering. These are not small things. They signal confidence. People who are confident don't hurry. People who are confident don't over-explain. People who are confident don't flinch. It's not about flaw, it's about discipline. The flaw is insecurity. The discipline is composure. That's the key. When you stop reacting, people treat you differently. They measure their words. They test less. They respect more. Not because you demanded it, because you earned it through steadiness. You have a choice. Be easily moved or be deeply respected. That's the key. Now you are close to the final level, because when you master calm, you gain something dangerous: mental dominance. Control your reactions and you control the room. That's the key. Power is not physical. Power is not volume. Power is emotional position. Whoever is calm sets the tone. Whoever reacts follows it. That's the key. Walk into any room where tension exists. An interview, a confrontation, a negotiation. One person is nervous, the other is composed. The composed one leads. Because calm people think, emotional people guess. That's the key. In an interview, anxiety shows. You rush answers, you over-explain, you try to impress, and the interviewer feels it. The calm candidate speaks slowly, answers directly, doesn't beg to be chosen. Who feels more valuable? The calm one. Control your reactions and you control the room. That's the key. In confrontations, the same thing happens. One person raises their voice, the other lowers theirs. Who feels dominant? The quiet one. Silence makes people lean in. Noise makes people tune out. That's the key.
In negotiations, emotional people give away leverage. They reveal urgency, they reveal fear, they reveal desire. Calm people reveal nothing, and whoever reveals less holds more power. That's the key. It's not about emotion, it's about discipline. Emotion is natural, discipline is trained. You don't remove emotion, you remove its control. That's the key. You have a choice. Let emotion lead or let discipline decide every time. You don't need their permission to pause. You don't need their permission to breathe. You don't need their permission to stay steady. That's the key. Here's how you practice mental dominance. When pressure hits, slow down. When people rush you, pause. When someone pushes, mention nothing. This creates imbalance. They are fast, you are slow. They are emotional, you are calm. And calm always wins. That's the key. Let me say it clearly. The room follows the person with the strongest nervous system. Not the loudest, not the smartest, the steadiest. That is why emotional discipline is leadership. It's not about charisma, it's about control. That's the key. Every time you choose discipline over impulse, your mind gets sharper. You see more, you miss less, you decide better. And people feel it. They can't explain it, but they respect it. That's power. You have a choice. Be reactive or be dominant. That's the key. You are almost at the end. You've learned how to stop being provoked, how to stay calm, how to keep your power. Now it's time to lock it in. This is not something you visit, this is something you become.
This is your new identity. That's the key. You are no longer the person who jumps. You are no longer the person who rushes. You are no longer the person who hands their nervous system to strangers. You are unprovokable. That's not a mood. That's a standard. You don't give reactions to unimportant people. You don't give energy to meaningless noise. You don't give your inner world away for free. You have a choice, and now you choose power. That's the key. Let's be clear. Nothing outside you changed. The world is still loud, people are still careless, egos are still insecure, provocation is still everywhere. What changed is you. You don't flinch, you don't scramble, you don't defend. You decide. That's the key. This is what being unprovocable looks like in real life. Someone disrespects you, you don't explode, you don't explain. You look at them calmly, and in that moment, you take the higher ground. Someone ignores you, you don't chase, you don't beg. You stay steady, and suddenly they feel the imbalance. Someone criticizes you, you don't argue, you don't justify, you keep moving, and the criticism dies in the shadow of your progress. That's the key. You don't need their permission to be calm. You don't need their permission to not reply. You don't need their permission to choose discipline. You have a choice, and now you choose power. That's the key. Being unprovocable doesn't mean you never speak. It means you only speak when it matters. You are no longer available for nonsense. You are no longer emotionally accessible to chaos. You are selective. Selective with your time, selective with your energy, selective with your reactions. That is maturity. That is strength. That is status. That's the key. It's not about flaw,
It's about discipline. The flaw is reacting. The discipline is choosing. You choose silence. You choose patience. You choose clarity. And every time you choose, you build power. You have a choice, and now you choose power. That's the key. Let me say this clearly. You are not here to be liked. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be in control of yourself. And when you are in control of yourself, you are in control of your life. This is not something you try. This is something you are. You are unprovokable.
You came here reactive. You leave here unprovokable. You no longer give people your anger. You no longer give people your fear. You no longer give people your attention on demand. Because now you know the truth. Every reaction costs you power. Every pause gives it back. You have a choice, always. Stay emotional and be controlled, or stay disciplined and be free. This world does not belong to the loud. It belongs to the calm. It belongs to the focused. It belongs to the unmovable. So starting now, you pause, you breathe, you choose, and you never let another human being control your inner world again. That's the key.